beginning.
Yeah.
There is a parish called Tosfos Kadoshim, the new editions.
Well, are you going to learn a commentary from it or just a
Commentary, third column. You have it?
Oh, here's a...
Okay.
Why is the tractate of Olus called the tractate of Olus, our fathers? Bore, Borach, Eza, Bechino. It's a generalization, just like a person serves his creator may be blessed in what way he serves him. Zeh Kenhu Midaso, B'Torah, L'Sovo. Shamati, I heard, B'Shem Harav Hagon, of Bezdin, Menik Shofborg, on the Mishnah Beis Shammai, he puts the words Beis Shammai.
What do you mean, before or after?
Instead of the word Beis Hill.
Oh, he puts
the word Sharegas, because the standards of Beis Shammai is higher.
Something of their sharpness and their learning of the students.
Yeah.
That's what I learned as far as that.
Yeah, but the reason that the halacha came out, because Beis Hill showed Madrigas is Makach, therefore, Kishiyavo Agol, Bimera of Yomenu, when the redemption will come, it may be swiftly in our days, halacha will be like Beis Shammai. Ato now, Olam, in this world, is there Olam, because the standards of Beis Shammai are above this world. People cannot live according to Beis Shammai in Olam Hazeh. Also, the world couldn't bear under these restrictions. But in Osi Lavo, when we will have all tzaddikim,
okay.
You will have this phenomena occurring.
Does that mean if you have a machlok, like, you can't just go ahead and say, what's the halacha? Because you got to learn them both, because in the future you could be learning.
It may very well be. I just want to show you a mimer that says this very statement. So I make a statement, I didn't just make McD. I have a source for my statement.
But is that a way to treat Beis Hillel when the Mashiach comes, that we have to push him aside?
No.
And say,
Gets to a higher madriga.
yeah. Oh.
When you are in a much higher law, that's right. The thing is that you must never,
Yeah.
you cannot be so complacent in assuming, given the proper atmosphere, if you have an atmosphere where everybody is of a great spiritual, it's no difficulty for them to even bear the restrictions of Beis Shammai. But for the ordinary person at the present time, we need every kula we can get. There's no way in the world we can live under the restrictions of Beis Shammai and Olam Hazeh, given our present circumstance. So that's a very legitimate reason why we have to have it that way.
Was there ever like a village or something that took upon themselves to go by Beis Shammai?
The halacha, and if a person, the Gemara tells us, if a person acts like Beis Shammai, they are actually sinning. They are not permitted to adopt. No, that's different. You may, but you cannot intentionally go on mention the Gemara in Shabbos. But other than that, the halacha is like Beis Hillel. Well, we're talking about these machlokes. We're talking about when they come head to head, when they argue. Okay, fine. Now let's go to. We're going to learn the Gemara in Kesuvos. We have here we have Kesuvos. We have here two Kesuvos here. Besides one.
Which is better to...
That's, you got to be very careful.
Yud Omen Aleph. We're holding by Yud Omen Aleph in Kesuvos. And we have started now, Baruch Hashem, in the last 3 weeks, we have started to have the Talmidim say the Shir.
Good. Good for them, not for me.
That's always good for you too. And that is a madrega that I'm hopeful could be continued and expanded. Yud Omen Aleph. We can start out way on the top of the page. Turn it is to recite. You? Can you say it?
That's as far as I got.
Because Rabbi Shimon...
In the name of...
Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Tiknu. Decreed for them Lebanos, Israel, the daughters of Israel, Lebasua, right, saved
a virgin, a minimum of 200 zuz. I means 200.
Okay.
It's 200, huh?
Yeah.
Plus one, so it's plural 200, minimum.
Believe, 100.
100, a minimum of 100. Of course,
All right.
it's just to add more to it depending on the station and that they are in, but this is a minimum. But
Okay.
at least we learned from here that the Chachamim made the takona that the daughters of Israel should get this amount of money, Kesuva. So we see that Kesuva is a concept of the rabbis rather than a strict Torah law, the Oraisa law. Yes.
Because it's known they would already. Yeah, I mean, when they believe him, Shimon, that if he says that he found the opening open,
What case are we talking about
They
here?
believe the chosin.
We're talking about a chassan that married a Caleb,
Yeah.
presumably first time married.
Yes.
He's no big deal about knowledgeable in
Yeah.
these areas.
Yeah.
Or should be.
And he claims around that he was not a virgin when
Yeah.
he came to consummate the marriage. And
So,
now we're going to say,
so what's he want,
not
100
only-
hours back?
yeah,
He wants 100 hours back.
He wants to go and knock off her capacity to collect her kesuva.
I see, okay.
And Chachamim will believe him.
okay,
Now, why do we believe him?
Since
That
when? I thought you never believe,
Yeah.
the woman always wins on this
it
situation.
is because the Chachamim who came to him, the ones who said that she believed are the same ones who made the ksuba. So they're the ones who also instituted to have a ksuba. So what they're doing is they're limiting ksuba that they in themselves instituted.
They put a clause.
They put a clause in that if he said, then he believed.
But don't panic.
I see.
The very
Officially, it looks like you're ripping off the Benotis. Here, she married him in good faith.
Yeah,
We got a marriage contract, and then the next morning he comes to the Bezdin,
complain.
and he's
right?
complaining, and he wants her to knock her off from any right to collect the ksuba.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem fair at all, does it? What is the takona? If they make a takona it's one thing if he's willing to go and he wants to terminate the marriage, that's one thing. He's divorcing her, but she's getting her marriage contractual right. But he wants to terminate the marriage and knock her out from collecting the suba, and that's proper.
So he wants the whole 200 back.
He
Not,
doesn't want to pay her a penny.
I see. This,
No, he claims it's a fraud. He was
Okay.
defrauded.
okay, we're
He doesn't
only
wanna
talking
pay.
about a
But
basula
there's
instance
a
because
question.
it could not be in the case.
If according to this mimer of, he's only going to knock her off 100, he's not going to knock her off the whole thing. Because if
Why? Because she's used merchandise.
No,
like,
I'm saying it's not used
otherwise, it
No.
wouldn't.
The question
That's
is-
why Almona.
One opinion, according to one opinion, if she was originally worth 200 as a virgin, and now since she's not losing that, she's the worst she can be now is a ba'ula, someone who has had relations before, and she's going to be worth 100. So why should he get knocked off the whole thing? Why should she not get anything? She should at least get 100 because that's there's two different
Because she
opinions.
came to the chuppah, she came on the premise
That's the other opinion.
that she was a virgin, that she's superior to an almona.
That's the second opinion.
So that's why they rule 200.
But, you know,
That's
but
a problem to me.
But ask over the issue whether she's us or not.
We want to understand the reasoning, how the rabbis permit him to have this power by his mere statement without having proof positive. After all, this is not positive proof. It's his own self-serving statement.
Couldn't it possibly be,
No, there's a reason.
surmising?
Yeah, the Gemara will
The
ask that
girl
question.
should know that this is the danger that you're facing.
Gemara's going to ask the question.
Yeah.
Usually when a person
Look at the
gets
Gemara.
married, they don't expect-
Look,
So it says, if this can be that the Chacham made a ksuba and then they can say Pesach was up, then he's believed. If the Chacham made the takana that they're going to make. If
this can be self-defeated by any chassid that wants to come along.
Then why
and
did you in the
Why they make such a
Well,
thing?
that's a joke. The whole thing is a
That's
joke.
so the general populace of the girls should know that this is what they face if they
But then they face
are
it.
not.
But the chassid is such a big-time expert, or that he's even telling the truth.
What did they face? They can get ripped off.
But the decision is made
It's
later by the
self-serving.
Bezdin. They really decide. They don't say automatically you knock off 200 or 100. They say we have to try the case. And under their questioning, they find out if the guy knows what he's talking about or not.
No, right now, we're just making a general statement, and we don't know
The general statement is to serve as a warning to the girls.
We just said,
The-
they said-
Later on, we will find out the fact.
Now,
How can you say he's believed if they later question it?
No.
Thank you, I finally caught it.
We're trying to ask the question, how can you say such a montezach? You set up in thing, you're protecting the dollars of Israel. What kind of protection is it? If there's a clause, then you can jipper out of it. It's like you're buying.
That I didn't know about.
Yeah.
They always got new clauses. Go on.
All right.
Rabbi's going to answer the question. It's an established fact. Now, this is going to be the answer. A person is not going to, a man is not going to bother with making the Suda for the Chasana.
Yeah.
And then Mafsida and lose it.
Yeah.
If he's making the preparation, now this is if he's making the preparation. He's making the preparations, he's not going to make for a whole big suit and everything. He's not going to say, oh, well...
The next morning, he's not going to go and mess it all up.
He's not gonna say
That's
well.
true.
True. I see.
He would not, he would not
in-
be sleeping with the woman all of a sudden.
In good faith. All right. Oh, you want to, yeah, okay, I
But
get it.
if, in fact, he didn't do anything to prepare for the bill, he
Yeah.
had no bother,
Yeah, that-
how can you believe him?
Are they
He was given daughters of Israel 3 days to prepare the marriage feast.
Making it to the betterment of the Benos Yisrael.
Yeah.
That a man should, Torah, the Benos Yisrael are the ones that are necessarily preparing the Suda or having Torah for Suda. We also learned that a man...
No, if you look in the Gemara, it will tell you
Yeah,
that,
we have one
yeah, you happen to have it right there. It will tell you that very distinction between whether or not he in fact was bothering
Fine.
to engage in helping to prepare the Suda or not.
But
If he
in
was
the-
bothering, then we believe him. He wouldn't do all that work for nothing. But if he wasn't bothering, then why should we believe him to knock her out of her marriage?
Okay, can I answer the question?
Yeah.
Torah is binyan kal, it's masculine. Toreches would be feminine.
Well-
Torah, this is Hebrew. This should be theoretically correct as far as the grammar goes. The Gemara should be correct as far as grammar goes. And
We're not
Yeah.
looking, in the Gemara, we're not necessarily looking at the tense. We're trying to look at the concept, the idea.
But she's doing so many mitzvahs by feeding this poor guy that she just met. And that, I mean, she's getting all the betterment by feeding this guy.
There's a
I
lot of
don't
matter
see
there.
the great mitzvah to feed someone.
Let's go further. At least we got the idea. All right, go further.
Where are we?
See, though, that a person would not bother to prepare a feast and then lose it right away unless it was a legitimate claim on him that that's not at all.
Why not?
It's not necessarily if it happened.
Who pays for the wedding feast if not for the man? The woman that her father would have to pay for, because the Nara, all her money goes to her father, so she doesn't have anything.
It's not a question of halal, it's a question of
Hey,
you want to marry off your daughter, you gotta
yeah,
make
what
guy
if the
also
father
wants
is
to get
not
married.
living?
This guy also wants to get married.
Of
so
the
he-
daughter.
He's getting married.
We're talking about a situation where we can give him a benefit of the
The
doubt
widow-
because he's a,
And her daughter, the daughter will never get married if the widow can't afford to make the wedding?
Whatever, we get
it'll be provided for, one way or the other.
Tana is ksuba. Okay, for now we're going to say it's a knas chachamim, meaning that
What's knas mean?
it's a penalty instituted by the chachamim. It's not instituted directly in the Mishnah Torah, but we're going to say that it's a penalty by the chachamim, but that if he divorces her, she gets to get this money that is stipulated in the ksuba. She can only collect, when she does collect the ksuba, if she collects the ksuba, from the ziboris, the worst of the field. Because since the chachamim instituted this thing, ksuba, they don't want to hurt the person. They just give her the worst. They don't want to make something where he can't sufficiently pay for her. What to stipulate the ksuba, therefore, if it's land, she gets the worst. She would be able to collect from the worst.
What are the three types of land?
The three,
Edith is the best.
This is the medium average. And
A land that is ziburis, what does it mean? You have to work
Yeah,
hard,
you're working very
and you
hard,
can't get much
and
of
you
a
get a
crop out of it.
minimum of, yield.
And you get Benonese, you work hard, and you get a medium-sized crop. And Edith is the very best crop. The very best thing that a person can collect for damages is money, because that you can buy anything else. And if you have to get your collection through a real estate, you want the very best real
Can I
estate.
tell you what they said?
But here it says that you only collect from ziburis, the very
I
worst.
was learning
The wife?
The former wife.
The former wife.
The kahat
Done something
also
so
is-
hard that she can't even make it work.
The tarpaulin is the best thing.
Why?
Because by the tarpaulin, you can take it anywhere from one
But
place.
the problem is not necessarily texture. We're saying here that the Chachamim made a takona that we collect from the very worst.
Okay.
Because if they made it that you could collect from the best, maybe some people would back off from marrying. They say, I don't want to get involved where my
You
best
mean
property. No.
I mean, this
Yeah,
was,
No, a guy would be so much in love with his property, he's got, he doesn't want to risk the possibility of having to give her from that property.
well, let's put this. He's prudent in the way he goes and conducts his transactions. Even getting married, he feels it's, that's
Okay,
true.
let's go on. Can we go on?
Baruch Hashem, I had no difficulty there. I didn't have ziburis, edis,
Yeah.
no problem.
Okay.
Me
now,
also.
We said, what's the penalty? What's the terrible thing that he had to do that now he has to pay a Kesuvos?
It's improper. Doesn't
If a person doing an improper act, the Torah goes and punishes him with a penalty.
yeah, because.
Because he married a woman that didn't work. Well,
So it's not something he did anything wrong. Why do they call it a penalty? He didn't really do anything. He could divorce her. She can only collect
because that's the way they set it up.
from the worst part, so they're not hurting anyone. Nobody's getting hurt.
No, they want to encourage that Jewish boys should marry Jewish girls.
Also, it's not hurting
You know, if you make it very strict, then the Jewish boy will back off and say, listen, I don't want to...
make back off then.
Huh?
If you get it too lenient, the Jewish girls make back off.
Hey, what kind of work did you do?
What kind the earlier share were...
Discourage Jewish men from getting married because they wanted to pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say that it might...
No, they have to pay.
Fine,
but they
but the
pay
word.
it
What
right
about
to
the Jewish women who are going to get discouraged saying, I'm not protected?
Yeah.
But
They themselves don't want to hurt anybody. So the woman is getting something on this ksuba that the Chachamim said. She is getting divorced, and the man doesn't have to pay from the best of his crops, so he's also getting something. Meaning that between the two of the Chachamim are making it so they can both live with this arrangement, and that nobody's getting hurt. Since the Chachamim, they're doing it so nobody gets hurt. They made it on both sides. They're going to be the worst of the land. It looks like it's one-sided. You know, the worst, the women get the worst. You know.
no. Matter of fact, later on we'll learn when the Chachamim were given free reign to set any standard they wanted of Kesuvos. So the Kohanim wanted to ask more for their daughters than just 200 zuz.
Yeah.
That's 400 zuz, whatever they wanted to ask. So, but then they found out they were pricing themselves out of the market. The Jewish boys would marry daughters of each. I had my first child was a girl, so I didn't really. Okay, fine. Well, you have to have children first.
Yeah. So he doesn't have to pay for a piece
Even
of
though
I know, but we're talking about a theoretical thing.
Still saying now, the ksuba of a woman that she gets a ksuba, I tell you, we learn in a brisa. Kesef yishkol, that money you should pay like the dowry of the women, of virgins.
It's
See,
talking about mafate.
like
Where a
somebody
person,
who seduces somebody who's never been
so the
married.
Torah law requires that he has to pay the amount he would have to pay. He has to pay to the father
He has
of
to
the
pay
seducer.
50.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's the same thing, okay.
Same thing.
But what?
A shekel is a shekel.
What? Well, she's also.
It doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. You're
If
not
she's
supposed
from-
to go and live outside of wedlock. Yeah, of course. Seduce a young lady, a young Jewish girl, because that's not the way it's supposed to be done in Israel.
What I
Supposed to marry her.
I misunderstand what's happening. Okay, I thought that the money that would he pay if she, instead of having to redeem his kid.
No, that's not. It's talking about a young lady
Yeah.
is a punishment by the Torah for a person that seduces a young Jewish girl.
So, but my kasha is, why 50? Oh, 50 is the same as 200
Yeah.
zuz. So
The
now
value
it's like,
of psula, whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's go.
Can I go on further?
Yeah.
She hates that this one, the mafata, it goes like the more of the sulos, just like the
We are comparing two types of cases.
To the owner.
To owners, we're comparing two types of cases.
Just
A
like
person rapes a young lady as a person that seduces her. In both cases, he is punished by the Torah for this improper activity. Both types of improper activity.
Now, that don't seem right.
It's a Torah concept that you punish people if they do certain things that they're not permitted to do. The only way you're permitted to live with a Jewish girl is to marry her. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to live outside of wedlock. Right. In both cases like this is outside of wedlock.
Is what seducing be worse because he causes her to sin also instead of just wounding her for the rest of her life?
That might very well be construed as such. Well, there's no particular class involved there. So we see that Ram Gamliel does only a law of the rabbis. So how was the one that holds that Kesuvos teacher is Mina Torah?
Okay, so now we're going to say April. Now we're going to just turn the whole thing around, and we're going to say it the other way.
Say it the other way. We'll say the Tanakama is Rabbi Gamliel. I'm sorry. Turn it around. Say that Torah, and the other side says it's Mini Rabbona.
So what are we turning around the second one? Let's turn around the first one. The first mimer. Okay. Instead of turning around the second mimer, where we say that we'll turn around. Now, so now they're going to say, well, let's change the first one around, and we're going to say now that the first one say the same.
Why
thing.
do you want to bring a?
Right now, there's a contradiction. Before we change anything, there's a contradiction. Okay. So now they're going to say, well, so if one of these mimorim may not be correct the way it is. So therefore, we have to change it around. Instead of Rav Shimon,
we'll correct it. We'll make a correction.
Correct it instead.
Well, correction says both Mamorim say the same thing. That Rav Shimon.
That we hear that Rav Shimon Gamliel says that a Kesuvos should be in the last chapter in Kesuvos Kuf Yod. Gamliel says we give her from the money of Kapotkia. And let me explain this. Okay. Kapotkia was a town outside of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, it was.
I think Jastrow says Kapotkia was an Asia Minor. That's where now would now be Turkey. So the outside of Eretz Yisrael, and a person married a Jewish girl in Eretz Yisrael, and he divorced her in Kapotkia. Now the question is,
it could be first or marriage of Kapotkia and divorce in Eretz Yisrael. The main thing is to understand the economic conditions of the country, and whose money was worth more. Because if you're going to marry her in one place and the other place has less, the money is worth less.
It's a question, what kind of a money do you pay her off with?
I understand.
Do you pay her off with the more valuable money?
Or the guru.
Or with the least valuable money?
His money, the money in Eretz Yisrael was worth less than it was in Kapotkia. So therefore, please. And so therefore, this is a direct proof that the Kesuvos of a woman is deraisa. Since the Torah, and only the Torah would make a chumrah, and not the Rabbanim, that's proof for my other thing, that the Chachamim would not make a chumrah. The Chachamim are not trying to make anything more. It's worth more in Kapotkia. We're saying that from the mouth. And every case, no matter where they were married, will pay always with the money of Kapotkia, which is worth less, which was worth more. Okay? And that's a proof.
That's me.
Okay. Was Kapotkia south of the Euphrates?
North.
Okay. Because
To the Mediterranean. There's a line from the Euphrates to the Mediterranean. But there might be a place in Asia Minor that's outside of that area.
it's like Turkey's.
If you pay her off in Kaputria, that means with the Turkish money.
With the more expensive money. In other words, the question, when he marries her, what is she entitled to?
She's living now in Turkey. She needs Turkish money. She doesn't need Israel money. Since she's now in Turkey, for her to go back to Israel, she's got to go through Turkey. She's going to be spending that money in Turkey. So therefore, it's proper that she should be paid off in Turkish money.
But
Now, the fact that the Turkish money is worth more than the Israeli money, so what is the 200 zuz that she's going to get paid off with?
No, but this thing, she's in Israel, she gets paid
She's
that.
going to get 200 zuz of Israeli value money.
No,
She's going to be
200
shortchanged in Turkey because it
No,
won't
she
last
gets-
her.
She'll get the top value, according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. According to
She'll get zuz
Yeah.
value in Turkey.
And in Israel.
No, she'll always get the
200
money
zuz value in
she'll
Turkey.
always get the money from
She'll always get the Turkey money, whether she's...
Because
She'll always get the money from Turkey, which is worth more. She'll never get the Turkey cent.
So she's not really gaining more than the 200 zuz of in Turkey.
No, it's like
She
you-
gets more, so she gets more than the 200 zuz.
Boy,
Yeah.
Okay. What's the big benefit that she's getting? That she's getting all this money. In truth, all she's getting is 50 shkolim no matter where you go. It's still...
in other words, no matter what kind of a money you get, only them, yeah.
All right.
Okay. V'im hayek. The all of the always sort of it's necessary legal law that we give her that we give her the value of the funds it's occurred and she's slow, we give her the 50 shkolim. Havanecha, it would be good. The Kishosifu. Necha would be good Kedami, like we say by the 5 slime of pigeon before
There's a shaila kind of scrolling we're talking about. There's a shekel that's Kodesh and shekel ordinary shekel. A shekel that's Kodesh is worth twice as much as an ordinary shekel. So there might be this type of a shaila. Huh?
Within Eretz Yisrael, at that time, they had 2 different types of shkolim.
Yes. So there's a different type of shekel. When you're talking about a shekel, I have seen it someplace that the shekel Kodesh is worth double. I'll try to find the source.
The only way I could
I think it's in
understand that
Jasper.
is that
He takes it from the
the
Gemara.
shekel kodesh could be pure silver 100%, whereas the regular shekel was 50% silver, mixed with other metals. So even though the coin was the same size, they both contained silver, but the
Believe
the
that, or
pure
I'll get
silver
up and I'll try to find the differentiation between it. Let's go further here. Let's go further. At any rate, we're trying to say that we wanted to say that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, because you have to give her most the more valuable type of money.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, it says here in Kodesh is called Shekel Tzuri, right?
Yeah.
Shekel Kodesh. It says here, L'kolam Kesef Medina Shminit Shebekesef Tzuri. It's an 8. A
Eight.
shekel is an 8 of Kesef.
Or it could be less than 8. Could,
In Tzuri. And it's worth an 8 for the dinner. Bring up everything we're saying so far. is
well, that Kesuvos is there, and also that Kesuvos is there Rabbanan. How could it possibly be that he both holds both Kesuvos is their rights and also their Rabbanan?
The Chasuri Misura. It's like a textual problem in the
There is lacking words in our statement, and this is the reason why we have a difficulty to understanding what it means.
This is what it said. What we learned. From here we rely, we sum that a ksuba of a woman is from the Torah. Ksuba salmona enemy divrei Torah.
But Isha, we're talking about Kesuvos Isha Basula.
Because usually speaking, a person that they get...
A woman that's almona.
Citing several cases.
No. So therefore he's saying two different, he's saying both things.
Now we're going to give a series of cases, 9 in number, where they're going to bring lawsuits where the Chosin is complaining that he was the Mechak Torah, he was cheated, and therefore he wants to terminate the marriage. All right, we'll do it next time. Leanetter, we will learn all the things for the next mission next time. That'll be next Monday. All the way to the next mission. And we will have perhaps a shir before Mincha, and perhaps a shir after Meyer. Okay, I'm continuing the run. And that's the best thing for the Ger Cotton acts as a father. Who Ger Al Yadin, it becomes a Ger through their agency. Magol b'yayin kosher, and if he touches the yayin the wine remains kosher. Aminan Allah, we say upon that Omer in Igdilu, if the Ger grows up, Yochel Mechosi can protest. Klomer in Igdilu. That is to say, if it becomes big, Hakushi is Kairu, that they became the Gerim, Aviyam, even if they became Gerim with their fathers, which the Gemara says that they're Nechos Masha Ovid Aviyam, Hachim Muchach Gemara, this is what appears in the Gemara, Yochel Mechos test, Velomer Ef Shrim, it's impossible for us to remain Gerim, The chosrin the suran, and they can return to their bad nature of being going again. Bezdin, we shouldn't punish them by Bezdin if they make such a decision. I feel Yadin Takifa, even if our hand is superior and we have jurisdiction to do so. And if he had married a wife in the interim time, Rishamicha ain't a get. If he protests, he don't need a get anymore, Leos Kedushin at all. I'm reading the Gemara, but later we say in the Gemara, that even the Gdilu Shoachas, once they became big, 1 hour, and they didn't protest, they cannot protest. And if you say, that they can protest, so presumably you say with the protesting of a youngster is not considered a protest at all. So once they become big, 1 hour, they can no longer protest. How is it possible to be exact? That she should immediately protest as soon as she becomes big. We can answer, then hey, it's true, the katanos la the protest of katanos is really not a protest. For what purpose? If later on she changes her mind, then her prior protest is no good. With regard to that, Mahani, that this protest of a katano helps the Indian of if afterwards, when she became big, tall, she remains adamant in her protesting, Mahani, that helps. And then he brings the second thing that I told you about. Inami, or else, when do we say? The Kibin Shigdilo Shoachas, when do we say? They become big. 1 hour, and you didn't protest, you can no longer protest. I know she became big with the religion of Moshe and the Jewish people. But as she grew up and she didn't go from Yiddishkeit, at that point, and she was already married to a Jew, because a lot of chicks like to marry Jews. And later on, she finds out that, I was born a chick. I got my Jewish husband, and I got the best of both worlds. No way. No. This is the Rabbi. On the station of life in which they happen to be in. If a person is more wealthy, they have an additional Kesuvos, depending on their state, where it is. It was intended so that it should not be easy in the eyes of a husband to get rid of his wife. Because it says, well, if he doesn't have to go and give her money when he gets rid of her, so big deal, he'll go and divorce her. And in the ancient times, the Jewish husband was permitted to divorce his wife against her will. Nowadays, of course, this is not so. Since the time of Rabbi Gershom, we no longer permit this type of activity, that he divorces his wife without her consent. Gershom lived in the year 1000. Was called Ma'or, the word called Ma'or Amagulo. I like this astra. We've had a lot of it, yes. Rashi has been called that, among other things. It's been called Polish. I read posting that say Rashi and Polish. Any rate,
I was thinking what he was thinking.
No. Any rate,
Some guy is telling them they have to learn. They start swearing.
No, that's when I first started learning. When I first started out Eric Khan, I remember I was in 7th grade in English, but I was in a 4th grade class. And I remember I started out with Rashi. I never knew how to read Rashi. Then when I learned how to read Rashi, I resented it so much.
Sure.
I thought, look, he's a person. If he wasn't around, I wouldn't have to learn Rashi. It would really bug me.
The original.
He had a God-given gift not only to be able to learn, but to express it and explain it concisely and to the point.
But then it bugs
There are a lot of people that, unfortunately, even though they have knowledge, they got to talk, and you lose the point. Because you can't follow what they're doing. And so it was a tremendous thing for Jewish people.
I know a rabbi gives a sermon that way.
Whatever it is, you talk and you fall asleep, you don't even know what he's talking about. Unfortunately, this happens. And so the Jewish law requires that a Jewish wife should have a Kesuvos. Now, we have in the Halacha, in the Gemara talks about that there is a case where, for instance, they newly got married and the Kesuvos hasn't been written yet, and they permit it to be done that he should live with her, even though the Kesuvos is not written. by him giving a pledge that it will be written.
Pledge meaning like a
A
piece of property?
The Kesuvos is just the first step, that's not the marriage yet.
No.
So how can he
That's
know?
a good point. A good point is that way. As a matter of fact, we do insist upon a written Kesuva part before we have the Kedusha.
Well, isn't the ways of getting married in the older days was to, you
The
know,
document,
the physical action?
that is technically
Allowed.
no, it's operative, but it is frowned upon by the rabbis. Because in any type of marriage, you have to have witnesses, and this is not a type of activity.
Learning in the Aruch HaShulchan, he seems to say that it's witness that would be by hearing.
Well,
But-
there again,
but no, but
that's
he-
not really, you don't actually see the actual act. We frown on that type of activity, and although it's a person to go through the first stage of marriage called kedut or erison, by either the passage of money or the value of money, that's the type we use nowadays, or by writing a document and saying, I'm marrying you with this document, or by the sexual intercourse is frowned upon by the rabbis, and the document is not being used ordinarily. And the one we usually use is money or the value of money. Either a ring, usually a ring that has no diamond in it, a plain silver or gold ring, or by a coin.
But they also have to, you have to have them appraised. And since usually the
need the doc-
girl,
Gold ring, you don't know it's 18 karat or 14 karat or
but
it's just gold plated.
All it has to be
Is
is
it the-
that the woman is not knowledgeable.
There's certain that are
That look like a
oh, no,
diamond.
no,
Yeah,
that are hard as a diamond and can scratch glass. Like a
Okay.
diamond. Yeah.
and they look like unpolished diamonds.
They're certainly worth more than a
They're worth
fruit.